Just got back from Lowe's, buying new ceiling fans, curtains, curtain rods, shower accessories, all that kind of stuff for the new house. And I tell you, brother, the money I am sinking into this new house, and I really haven't even bought it yet. You know, closing's a week away, so it's not even my house yet, and all this money I'm sinking into it.
Well, you're going to be able to cuss those people out at Lowe's on a first name basis here before too long.
Well, I don't want to cuss them out yet. I still need them for the moment.
It's coming.
Yeah. Hey, everybody! Unclear thinking time. That guy over there, Anthony Goodrow. You know him so well. I'm Larry Smoke. As you folks are well aware, I'm days away from moving into a new house, and Anthony and I found a video lecture, so to speak, that coincidentally is relevant to my life situation. And as usual, folks, we'll have a link to it in the show notes. It's about a 10-minute discussion from a professor at the University of Toronto, and he's talking about how home ownership in the modern age may not be, and probably should not be, the thing that we've grown up and our parents grew up, and probably our grandparents grew up thinking that it should be. And the first thing that struck me is I had never thought about how much buying and owning a home contributes to the economy, and not forget the process of just building the house. I mean, once you buy the house, then you've got to buy furniture, you've got to buy appliances, you've got to buy clothes to fill the new closets you have. You have to buy entertainment to get out of the house every once in a while for fear of going stir crazy. You've got a 2-car garage. Well, we've got to have 2 cars. And all these other industries that benefit from we as home buyers, and it's just how much of the ancillary economy is dependent upon shelter. I mean, if you have kids, which once upon a time, people had a lot of kids because they needed the free labor for the farm, whereas now, well, why do you need kids now? I mean, but you know, and easy for me to say because I don't have any. I know. But we society, you know, we have 2.2 children per household. So that means in addition to all these other things that you're buying cars for them, you're buying clothes for them, you're buying devices for them to fill up the space in the house you've allocated for them. It just, you know, all these other industries that benefit from this, that billow out from the single point of we own this house.
It's funny you mentioned that about the kids because the house we're in now, we went to a slightly smaller house, and I like to think it was a decision in anticipation of shuffling those little boogers out of here eventually. Or maybe it was just a lucky break. Mm-hmm. But when my son comes back from school, we are kind of cramped in here, and that kind of makes it less attractive for him to come home and stay with us too much. Not now, but more so in the future when he, God willing, he finishes college. Mm-hmm. And you know, I know enough people with 20-plus-year-old children living in their houses. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see that here, but that's another story. Yeah. But sure. To your point, the increase in home ownership, especially since World War II, is big business for the personal home comfort businesses. Mm-hmm. And how can you afford these new things once you buy a house? Well, the first thing I noticed when we bought our first house was how much more money we could have.
Oh yeah.
Banks loved us all of a sudden.
Well, back in those days, yeah.
The first thing they wanted to give us was a credit line or a home equity loan. Mm-hmm. You know, it was basically a checkbook. Yeah. We could on anything we wanted to. Yeah. Thankfully, we didn't fall in that trap. Yeah. But you know, once we got the loan from the bank, credit card offers out the wazoo. Yeah. I mean, just like, you know, your house. For most people, your house is going to be the largest form of collateral you ever own. Mm-hmm. And that's what all lending is about, is collateral. Yeah. Yeah, I think you and I probably had our first home buying experiences kind of in the heart of the real estate salad days, to use your term from last week. I know mine was in 94. I think you said yours was in 95, thereabouts. And I can vividly remember when I was trying to obtain my first mortgage, and the first banker with whom I was speaking was telling me, well, you can, and I don't remember the exact figure. I'm not hiding it for anything. If I could remember it, I'd say it, but I can't remember what the exact monetary figure was. So just for the sake of the story, let's say this guy said, well, you can afford a $110,000 mortgage.
And I knew right then, no, I can't. There's no way in hell I can afford that. And he's replied, sure you can. And I said, no, I can't. And he said, well, sure you can. And I reiterated with my finger in his face and my eyes wide for effect, no, I can't. And there were many times in my young, underpaid, budding professional career that I was thankful that for once in my life I had the good sense to say no to somebody waving money in my face, because everything went to pot. And
right.
and I was lucky enough that I wasn't one of these folks that was all of a sudden underwater. So I remember those days.
Well, don't quote me on this figure, but I'm pretty sure the magic number that banks use as to whether or not you or how much house you can afford, it's about 40% of your income.
I've heard.
In payment.
Oh wait, I've heard that some. And once again, folks, forgive us for lack of statistics. Goodrow and I try to make a point of not drowning you guys in statistics. We're not really here to teach you guys anything. We're kind of here to let you hear what we think about something and what it makes us talk about. Not so much to preach. So we may sound like we're just pulling stuff out of thin air, but again, it's our impression, not so much we're looking for facts. But that said, I think I've heard before that as far as the total mortgage value, that once upon a time you could take your annual income and double it. If you made 50, you could afford 100. If you made 75, you could afford 150. And again, that's just memory. I could be completely wrong.
To add to your point from a minute ago, we don't need no stinking statistics.
Yeah.
I can go out and find any kind of statistics to support my point. So.
And if you can't find them, we can make them up. But if America wasn't so deep-seated in the notion of home ownership, there's a whole industry that almost wouldn't exist. Lowe's and Home Depot, the DIY warehouse industry. You think about that; those two mammoth corporations, they cater to homeowners. They don't cater to contractors. Sure, they do a lot of business with contractors. Even if nobody owned an individual home, there'd still be a lot of construction going on. But let's face it, the folks that built the New World Trade Center, they're not getting their supplies from Home Depot.
Right. And I'll tell you who else they don't cater to for the most part, and that's renters.
Yeah.
Because what do homeowners do that renters don't, and that's renovate and improve.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they
inside and out. Mm-hmm. New kitchens every 7-10 years if you stay in that house that long.
Yeah.
One day it's, honey, this refrigerator is 7 years old. There's not enough room to separate the gluten-free from the organic kale sprouts and the 9 kinds of assorted berries. Good gravy, where can I store this gravy?
Yeah, I want my beer over here, and I want my apple juice over here.
I want my imported beer here.
I want my lime-a-ritas over here.
At some point, the American dream changed from simple financial prosperity to owning a home as if that's some sort of one-fits-all goal. Mm-hmm. The old mentality is that real estate is a great investment. That just, it doesn't seem to be as true anymore. Mm-hmm. And if it was ever true, mm-hmm. because if you look, as a long-term investment, real estate really, truthfully, just barely stays ahead of inflation, and that's in good times.
Yeah.
There was a time when right before 2007, 2008, when the real estate crash happened. Now people were tunning it on houses, mm-hmm. and I'm not here to try to convince anybody that I'm some sort of financial super genius. Yeah. But we sold our house in 2006, which we bought in 1994, mm-hmm. and we killed it. We mm-hmm. did.
Yeah.
Now that was dumb luck.
Yeah.
But
you got out just at the right time.
Just at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
That will never happen again, I assure you. Mm. But you look at what caused the real estate bust, and that was just too many people were qualifying for mortgages. Bottom line.
Yeah, money was too easy to get.
Too easy. They said to qualify for a mortgage in those days, all you had to do was fog a mirror.
Mm-hmm. And, that's about right.
That was about it.
Yeah, and it was probably about a good 20 years that home loan business was like that, and I mean, I guess that was to me it seems like that was a symptom of, for 50 years leading up to the mid 80s, maybe, well, definitely World War II, but maybe even a little bit before World War II, as the agrarian economy started to fade away, and Great Depression and then on, and more people moving towards industrial centers and whatnot, that home ownership was drilled into kids growing up, young adults. That's what you had to do. And then by the 1980s, the silver-haired bankers had grown up with that mentality, and that was the business. Was, well, these people have to have houses, and made the money so easy to get. And
well, Herbert Hoover said the goal was a car in every garage and a chicken in every pot.
Yeah.
And of course, the garage implies a house attached to it.
Right. Yeah.
That was, that became the dream. But when 70% of the population become homeowners, that's not really a dream anymore. That's sort of
it becomes expected, and that's what we're saying.
Entitlement.
Things that the notion of you've got to own a house has became the norm. And again, not to knock it, I guess what started this train of thought was that with our economy changing so much now, and what kind of got me thinking about owning a home is we all of us, 'cause me too, we're so anchored by these homes that we own that we're limiting our vocational prospects, job opportunities, because we feel as though we can't go somewhere else to find a new job, different job, better job. And the recession that began in '08, and some would say that to a degree we're still in, and all these industries that are folding up in layoffs, and people are not mobile enough to take advantage of the opportunities that may be somewhere else. And that's the lecture that started this train of thought with me and started this conversation between the two of us. Professor Florida said that if people did not own a larger percentage of people did not own homes, if they were more flexible, if they were able to be more mobile, more people could take advantages of job opportunities elsewhere, and that would lessen the unemployment problem, stimulate the economy. And it's a way of thinking, and it's true in my own life. Here I am buying this new house, and I'm not moving. I'm only moving several streets away to a new neighborhood. I'm not even moving across town, much less to a new town. But I've had the same job for 17 years, working on 18. And there's been several times that folks, that I live in the Augusta, Georgia region, and there's several towns around that kind of make up the metro area. So it's a good size little city, but it is limited in my chosen field. I'm in medical management. There are only so many opportunities around here, and I've thought through the years that if I wanted to find a better opportunity, there's only so many choices here. Chances are I'm going to have to look in another city. Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to have to move. And the thought of that is daunting enough that it definitely factors in my decision to not improve my vocational life, my career path. And in a micro sense, that affects the economy. If there are 5,000 people just like me, well, that's affecting the economy. People are not moving to places where they could be more productive in our overall economy. So I get that.
And it also affects me. It keeps me from having a decent midlife crisis. I can't even, if I want to go pursue a career in acting in New York City on Broadway, then I've got this behemoth of a mortgage tying me down. Like I said, can I sell it? I don't know. It's all is that buyer out there. I have somewhat of a unique property, and it's just got to have the right buyer at the right time. Is the situation most real estate is.
It'd be a shame if the world was deprived of your skill at the works of Ibsen. There's a reference for you. That's almost Dennis Millerian.
Yeah, that went way up for my head.
Kids, go to Google and look up Ibsen plays. But yeah, you're right. Mobile economy. It's not even just the. We've been talking about the macroeconomic aspect of it. Think about it from a people standpoint. When the home ownership craze, I hate to resort to that word because that makes it sound trivial, but when the concept of home ownership became so widespread, all through the 30s, 40s, 50s, I'd even say into the 60s, through the 60s, when people stayed put more, and it's hard to put into numeric value. I'm speaking strictly from an impression point of view. It seems that all these quote unquote neighborhoods everywhere, the sense of community was so much stronger because people stayed in them. You knew your neighbors for years and years and years. Yeah, you saw them sitting on the front porch in the afternoons, and you waved to them, and you might have even walked over to the fence and spoke to them. All the kids in the neighborhood spilled out of the houses into the streets or into each other's yards and played all afternoon after school. The wives took each other cakes on occasion. Just because folks didn't move around as much as we do now, people were more invested in each other's lives. And now the housing boom of the 80s probably started it, but the bust is having the same effect because it became so much easier to, as you said, unload a six-figure behemoth and go somewhere else. That people became less and less aware or interested in their neighbors' lives because, hey, those folks aren't going to be there very long anyway, so there's no point in me getting all invested in them.
Well, let me tell you something I've noticed living in or near the town that I grew up in. Let me tell you something that I've noticed. There, a lot of people, a lot of my friends, their parents still live in the same house they lived in when we were kids.
Yeah.
So we're going on 40-ish years of living in the same house, in the same neighborhood, and the neighbors, a few have come and gone, but essentially, with a core group of people in this neighborhood, they're still there. Now we're talking people in their 70s now. On the other hand, you have people that I knew in their 30s who were buying these McMansions in their 30s, whereas these folks lived in modest homes, for most of their lives, but these houses just keep getting bigger and bigger. They might buy a starter home to begin with, but 7, 8, 9 years in, it's boom, huge mortgage, big house. And that's a new trend for our generation to jump into a house of that size at that age.
I mean, how many of our parents' generation ended up owning their homes? They stayed in the homes long enough that eventually they paid them off and owned the home. And you and I may very well never have that happen to us. We may never even know anybody like that. I mean, until very recently, I thought there was a chance that I would end up owning my current home, and it's just because some lucky breaks have come my way of late that it's been economically sensible to jump on this new house to which I'm getting ready to move. But I've accepted the fact that here I am working on 48 years old and I'm going to be starting over with a mortgage. I'll probably never own it, so I'll be just like all the rest of us, I guess.
There are probably worse things in the world than dying while you still owe money to the bank.
Yeah, then they can come and get it, right? And let's not forget, what started this conversation was not just the buying or building a house, but the purchasing of all the things that go in it. All the stuff that I owned, if I didn't, okay, I've got a house, that's fine. Selling a house and moving somewhere else is one thing. But if I didn't have the material possessions that I have, would I be more willing to consider trying to sell a house and move and find another one? It's not even just the purchase, the sale of the home. I mean, it's the moving of all the stuff. And then some people would say, well, you just throw it all away and start over from scratch. And I'm sure the economy as a whole would love that. But So there are
more stuff.
We all have the financial limitation at some point. So I mean, we got to take some of the stuff with us. I mean, if I were to lose my current job now, would I be able to downsize my living arrangements in this city because of all the crap that I own?
You know, when we bought this house, the owners before us were moving to Chicago, and they practically begged me to buy their lawnmower from them. It was left.
So yes, don't have to take it.
They just kept saying, we went back and forth. Make me an offer on it. I don't want it. Make me just make any offer on it. I don't want it. They were exactly in that fix. They had to get rid of it.
Yeah. And there's only so many things you can leave sitting beside the street. But to get back to the lecture and the contents of it, one of the things that Professor Florida expounded on in that video was, okay, all the housing bust happened, and of course he was talking about in larger cities, but I guess as the years roll on, the problem would occur in more moderately sized cities, and even more, I hate to use the word small towns, but smaller, larger towns, smaller cities. We would have all these townhouses that were popping up the last 25 to 30 years. All these, high-rise and mid-rise buildings, full of condos, multi-unit apartments, things like that are now sitting empty in the larger cities because the housing market busted, and now there's a glut of empty housing out there. And with all these folks in the larger city, coming to the larger cities where the economic opportunity is, it makes more economic sense for all that excess housing to become rental housing, and nice rental housing. I don't mean fly trap rental housing. Right. And that the first thing that I thought when he said that was, that makes perfect economic sense. It really does. I see the economic logic in it, but it so goes against human nature, or what we as Americans have just had so ingrained into us that most of us despise the thought of renting. We feel like we're giving money away when we rent. We don't feel like that money is going towards anything, even though we lease cars all the time. We pay for the use of things, and we don't think a thing about it. We pay for the use of cable television. We don't get anything when we give Comcast our monthly bill. We're paying for the use of something. So why should it be so abhorrent to us to pay for the use of lodging? And that's almost going to have to be the answer, as all these larger cities where the economic opportunity is, that's where people need to go, and yet nobody can afford to buy housing there.
Well, I'm sure it's a different dynamic in bigger cities, but kind of in the culture that we came up in, was that when you rented a piece of property, we were young, we didn't have a whole lot of money to spend, so our rental, the choices were limited, and our experience with the landlord situation probably wasn't the best in the world. So I'm sure in the back of our minds somewhere we're thinking, you're kind of losing control over certain things. If the hot water goes out, how quickly is this person or management company actually going to fix this thing? Whereas if your hot water heater goes out, you go to Lowe's and get a new one and fix it because it's yours, and you do it on your schedule.
Well, and I do think that if the rental housing sector is to rise to a significant degree, that industry, for lack of a better word, would have to become or regain the impression of the reputation of being more professional. The management of it would have to be, there would have to be the sense that, and I think with the entrepreneurial spirit still, thankfully, in our society, somebody is going to see that need, that several somebodies will take this glut of housing and in a professional, respectable, reputable manner have a rental system that would include stable, dependable service, maintenance, amenities, blah 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 blah. I think it would take time. You're right. Because we're such a home owning mentality as a society, that's part of our aversion to rental is we think of all the nightmares of landlords, but that would have to change for this concept to take hold. And I think the concept is out of necessity going to take hold eventually. People are going to have to go where the jobs are. I mean, when our society drifted away from farming, and the railroads took people to the cities, people on the farms had bad ideas about city folk and city living, but that was where the money was, so they sure went, didn't they? And I think the same is eventually going to be true. People are going to have to go to where the jobs are, whether it's physically or telecommuting. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the rental industry is going to have to eventually will improve its reputation, when you earned or not. It's going to have to.
Well, two things to some points you made. At the height of the real estate boom, one of the hottest areas of the country was Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. After the real estate collapse, the surrounding areas of Las Vegas had entire neighborhoods, brand new developments, where nobody ever lived in them. Yeah. And they are in serious deterioration right now.
Well, look at Detroit.
I think Detroit's at like 40%.
Yeah, well, I mean, the city is bulldozing neighborhoods in Detroit. Forget the fact that people won't buy the property. The city can't afford to continue to provide utilities and police protection to these neighborhoods. I mean, they got to bulldoze them to flat land.
And the second point was moving back to urban areas is a trend now. And I'll tell you something that I thought was odd to begin with, but I see their point now. And that is, I don't know, a decade ago, a new shopping center went up in Columbia, Village at Sand Hills.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You familiar with that? Okay.
Believe it or not, I've never been there. I know what it is, but I've never been there.
You're not missing a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
But in the it's set up like a small city, streets and everything. It's basically a drive-through. They look like city storefronts and everything, but they're several stories tall, and they actually rent living space above them. And I thought at the time, now who really would want to live in a shopping center? But you take a look at what's going on in some small urban areas, not big cities, but I think Greenville is one where they're building these really nice apartments downtown above retail space, and that doesn't look bad.
Mixed use communities, I think is the term. Yeah. Well, look at what the Atlanta Braves are doing in Cobb County right now. That's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to build a commercial / residential neighborhood development economic zone. The Braves will play. There'll be restaurants. There'll be shops. There'll be living space.
So maybe the rental idea is catching back on again. But I thought that the video, basically what it is, it's a question I've been turning over in my mind for a couple of years now. Is owning a home really the best option? And I was glad to see that video because it kind of, I guess it kind of validated just having that question at all. I don't know really what the answer is, but it somewhat validates just the question itself.
Yeah. Well, what all this kind of gets me to wondering is, I've done a lot of wondering, but I guess the final thing it makes me wonder, how do we, societal explain to our hypothetical or real children that they shouldn't pursue the same dream that we, and dream in quotes, the American dream, that we chase, that our parents chase, our grandparents chase? Is it hypocritical of us to discourage our kids from putting down roots anywhere like we did? Do you think that mothers would be so selfish in their desire to have their kids and their grandkids stay close to home that they wouldn't be able to encourage their kids to actively seek out better chances, even if it meant moving farther away? I mean, that gets us back to human nature versus macroeconomics. I wonder how families responded back when people were leaving the farms or leaving the smaller towns for the bigger cities during the railroad expansion and the interstate highway expansion. I wonder if we as a whole can overcome our, greed is a hard word for it, but our desire to own a home, even though it might not be in our best interest.
Well, I'll tell you what I would tell my kids so that they can ignore it. I would say don't anchor yourself to something like a big mortgage until you're absolutely sure you are where you want to be and doing what you want to do, because it's impossible to predict really what they're going to turn out to be when it's all said and done career wise. It may be several different things.
Yeah.
But until you're really doing what you want to do, where you want to do it, don't anchor yourself down in any way to that location. Yeah. Good advice, bad advice, I don't know. But that's what I
No, that was almost like Robert Young, Father Knows Best kind of advice. I'm proud of you there, buddy. Folks, we may not have made a whole lot of sense, but tell us what you think about this. We're always interested in how our airheaded opinions bounce off you guys. What would you guys contribute to it? Let us know. As usual, we can be found on Twitter. I'm at LA Smoke. Goodrow is at Anthony Goodrow. As usual, email unclearthinking@gmail.com. Social media, Facebook, Google+, you can find us there.
Show ideas, interesting articles, send those our way as well. Probably the hardest part of doing this podcast is what?
Is thinking of things you people might give a rip about listening to. Because we can talk about some of the dumbest crap, but we know you guys don't want to hear it. So we need something we think you might actually want to hear. Well, look, okay, enough of that. I'm selling this house in 5 days, so I gotta go mow the lawn for the last time. And I'm probably not going to enjoy it as much as you do because my mower doesn't have a cup holder, damn it.